Hey folks, it's Rob, and this is a little project I'm going to do. I don't know how much I'm going to do of it, but I'm going to go into some of the stuff I picked up since the pandemic by going through uh, this here, my Dungeons and Dragons basic set I managed to get. I do have some other aspects of Beckme, and Beckme is. I don't want to have to pick a favorite, but it's in my top two Dungeons and Dragons rule sets. I know I'm an old graybeard grognard. I personally spent a lot of time with this and later editions, basically Beck Me, which is a basic expert companion master immortal. And I mostly got to read immortal. I didn't really get to play immortal. Hardly anybody did, I don't think, and I don't. I'm still chasing an immortal set for my collection. Um, but I have the companion book, and that stripped out a lot of the immortal stuff. Um, so it's more Beck, Beckham, because it definitely has the weapon mastery rules, which we're not going to get into right now. This was given to me as a 10-year-old 40, well, not this particular one, but this game 40 years ago. And it was uh, 1984 as a gift for Christmas from my aunt. I was a precocious young child who probably was given this to give him something to be distracted by. Sadly, my set does not contain original dice, but despite its somewhat battered state, has some perfectly good books inside. And as you can see, I have been using it for a little bit of campaign play with my dear wife, actually. Um, but let's set that aside and just dip into the book here. So we got the preface here and how to use this book, and talks about how in the future you're going to have the expert and companion and master sets down here, right? And I got your acknowledgments and so many of the vital people of this birth of this role-playing game thing have passed on because it's just been that much time. But there are very few of them still around, and you should, if you're interested, go find them. Um, you know, Larry Elmore. If you want some Larry Elmore work, this artist, he's all through this book. He's still out there and still selling prints on a shop right now. So, you want to get some of that, go ahead. Put it on your wall. Wave your geek flag, right? Um, Here we have the introductory items, right? And I thought, let's go through it together. And it'll be a bit of an anniversary for me. And, perhaps you're interested. Perhaps you're not. I don't know. But I'm doing this for me, so it doesn't matter. So let's start here. Um, a dungeon is a group of rooms and corridors in which monsters and treasures can be found, and you will find them as you play the role of a character in a fantasy world. There are many kinds of monsters, but dragons are the biggest and most dangerous, and have the most treasure. You could start playing this game right now without learning any rules, just with someone, just with, and without anyone else to play with, just reading, and you will discover the basics of the game in a matter of minutes. During your first adventure, you will only need one of the dice in the box. The others will be used later. For now, all you need is the roundish one with the numbers 1 through 20 on it. Use a crayon to fill in the numbers and rub off the extra wax with a tissue so only the numbers are colored in. And I did do that back in the day, but I don't have those dice anymore. I moved so many times. and those dice are long gone. But, and this set didn't come with any. Those are sought after collectibles nowadays. But I do happen to have some more modern dice. In fact, here, see, we got all these over here. This is the metal ones are from this box. The other ones are from this tube, which I forget who sold them, but maybe that'll come over in the camera. That's their logo. Serious Dice, like the star. So let's get the D20 out. There we go. And right. So after you do that, get a pencil and paper, and you're ready to start. Well, I prefer a pen, honestly, and I know I can't erase it. The pen. I'm going to use paper for scratch. Basically, I have a nice pad of graph paper here. I have this very nice pen, right here to hand. So, voila. Read this booklet just like any book. Don't skip around, although later on you will skip around. This edition has been completely revised to introduce the game to you, step by step. While you are reading the next sections, you will learn many things about the game. You do not have to memorize everything as you go along. By the time you have played the solo adventure, which is pages 13 to 22, you will know how to play the basic game. The rest of this booklet gives other details that you will need when playing the game with others. In group games, one person is the dungeon master, and everyone else is a player. The dungeon master, or DM for short, runs the game while the others play the roles of characters. The other booklet in this set, Dungeon Master's Rulebook, gives all the information needed for running group games. Well, maybe not all, but this was a pretty good start. What is role-playing? This is a role-playing game. That means that you will be like an actor, imagining that you are someone else and pretending to be that character. You won't need a stage, though, and you don't need costumes or scripts. You only need to imagine. So this is the theater of the mind kind of concept, right? This game doesn't have a board because you don't need one. You can have a board. A lot of people have miniatures and stuff. I certainly have more than a little bit of terrain on shelves in this room. It's actually sometimes a bit of a burden because it can be quite tedious to put together and put away. And it's not how I learned how to play, honestly. When I play with my wife, she likes to have things laid out, and the terrain done up, and maybe we'll show you some at some point in our video. But I'm very much into just kind of trying to picture it and go off the descriptions. So, maybe we'll, do some mapping, but we can always sketch things out. And, maybe that's a good compromise, right? You get like a whiteboard. In fact, there's very nice wipeable gridded texts, sheets that you can use. Have one for my gaming table in the living room. It's a nice little matte inlay. So, get back on target, Rob. Sorry, folks. Game doesn't have a board because you don't need one. Besides, no board could have all the dungeons, dragons, monsters, and characters you will need. They're referring to it in the sense of like a Monopoly game. For now, while you are learning, you will play a role in your imagination. Later, when you play the game with others, you will all be playing different roles and talking together as if you were the characters. It will be easy, but first you need to get ready. What role will I play? Imagine. It is another place, another time. The world is much like ours was long ago, with knights and castles and no science or technology, no electricity, no modern comforts of any kind. Imagine dragons are real. Werewolves are real. Monsters of all kinds live in caves and ancient ruins, and magic really works. Imagine you are a strong hero, a famous but poor fighter. Day by day, you explore the unknown, looking for monsters and treasure. The more you find, the more powerful and famous you become. Your character's basic abilities. In the game, we need some way of describing your character, the fighter you will pretend to be. We can say the fighter is strong, fairly nimble, not too smart, but we need to describe the character a little better than that. We call these descriptions abilities: strength, intelligence, and others. We measure each one with a number called an ability score. The highest score possible is 18, and the least is 3, for reasons we will discuss later. You are a strong fighter. Your strength score is 17, nearly the highest possible. You are fairly nimble, which means that you can move swiftly. The name for this ability is dexterity. As a fighter, you don't need a high dexterity score. Your dexterity is 11, which is a little above average. A fighter often isn't very smart. Your character isn't as smart as you are, but isn't stupid either. Let's say your intelligence is 9, which is a little below average. Now make a note of your ability scores. A place in the middle of your sheet of paper, write 17 strength, 11 dexterity, 9 intelligence. Dexterity and 9 intelligence. And I'm sorry, I always abbreviate these as STRDEX and INT because, again, life is too short to be writing that out all the time when you're making characters. You also need equipment for adventuring. You are carrying a backpack and other items very similar to what you would carry when camping. Some of these items include food, water, rope, a lantern, and so forth. For now, just assume you have everything you need to survive in the wilderness. With monsters around, you need protection. You are wearing armor made of links of chain called chainmail and a helmet. You own a beautiful sword and have a dagger tucked into one boot just in case. You know how to use all your equipment properly. If you like, you can give your fighter a name. It doesn't matter whether you are male or female. All set? Let's go. Now, for the sake of this game, I'm going to give my character, let's just call him Robov. He'll be a nice little fighter. Why not? Let's make him male. As you can see, the character is fairly... I always interpreted him as male, but you could interpret this either way you like, honestly. Just as the illustration goes, right? So, your first adventure. Your hometown is just a small place with dirt roads. You set off one morning and hike to the nearby hills. There are several caves in the hills, caves where treasures can be found, guarded by monsters. You have heard that a man named Bargle may also be found in these caves. Bargle is a sort of bandit who has been stealing money, killing people, and terrorizing your town. If you can catch him, you can become a hero. As you approach the entrance, you look around. It's a nice day, and everything seems peaceful. You know that things aren't usually peaceful in caves where monsters live, and it's usually dark, too. So you get out your lantern and tinderbox. Matches haven't been invented yet, so the box has flint and steel, and carefully light the wick. The flame sputters a bit, but the oil soon burns with a soft glow. With your sword ready, you step into the cave. It's dark and musty inside. A passage leads inward from the entrance, going deeper into the hill. It looks like the only way to go, so you head in that direction, watching carefully for bats and other nasty creatures. Suddenly, you see a goblin. He is smaller than you are and looks like an ugly little man with gray skin. He sees you, gives a scream, waves his sword, and attacks. You dodge his blow and raise your sword to swing. If the goblin hadn't attacked right away, you might have tried talking to him. But now you have no choice. You must fight for your life. So, we're engaged in combat. Welcome to the combat system. How to hit. In the game, whenever you try to hit a monster, there is a chance that you will miss, and of course, a chance that you will hit. It is very hard for monsters to hit your fighter because of your fine chainmail armor. The goblin isn't as hard to hit because his armor is not nearly as good. Picture in your mind a creature wearing a loincloth. Possibly with some skin strapped to its body, To swing at the monster, you must make a hit roll. Roll the 20-sided die. If you roll an 11 or less, your character misses the goblin. If you roll a 12 or higher, you hit. This number is part of the combat rules. You will learn more about it as you continue. So, that's a 4. That's a miss. If you miss, the goblin tries again but misses. You can swing again, roll again to see if you hit. Hey, 12, we hit. If you hit the goblin, he screams and runs away down the corridor and into the darkness. Goblins can see in the dark. You have wounded him. If you keep missing, keep rolling. The goblin is trying to hit you, but you keep dodging the blows. Remember, if you hit the goblin, he runs away. Now, we're not going to roll damage at this point, the way the game's set up. It's possible we could have killed a goblin in one blow of a sword, but we don't really know that yet, do we? Damage and hit points. In the game, when any creature is hit, either monster or character, damage is caused. There is a way of keeping track of damage called hit points. The number of hit points is the amount of damage that a creature can take before being killed. Hit points can be any number. The more hit points a creature has, the harder it is to kill. We often use an abbreviation for hit points. It is HP. Your fighter starts with 8 HP, hit points, and still has all 8 since the goblin never hit you. He may have hit your armor or shield, but never got through your protection, so those attacks are still called misses. They didn't actually damage your character. And this is how this version of the game kind of... It's abstracting the concept of both your dodging and the ability of armor to shrug off injuries. So, when a highly armored character is hard to hit, a lot of those hits are actually just glancing off the armor. They're basically ineffective, right? Meanwhile, a low armor class character, so let's say like just a magic user who's wearing robes and has no particular armor on him, his difficulty to be hit is basically affected by his dexterity to some degree, but is otherwise not largely changed. And so misses on him are largely just complete misses. But use your imagination as to what you think is appropriate for any given situation. And functionally, a miss is a miss, guys. Okay? And I hope you don't mind my asides, but I just kind of want to get through thoughts I have as I'm going through this. So, carrying on. Constitution, your health. Your fighter is healthy and can fight a long time without tiring. This ability is measured by another ability score called Constitution. Your constitution is 16, well above average but not perfect. Your constitution affects your hit points. If you have a low score, you might only have 2 or 3 hit points. On the other hand, if you had an 18 constitution, you might have as many as 10 hit points or more. Write your new ability score under the others on your sheet. So that's a 16 constitution, or con, as I always abbreviate it. Near the top of the page, above the ability scores, make a note of your hit points. And that's HP 8. That's how I would normally write that out, although it says hit points 8. Now, back to your adventure. Well, let's just show you the sheet while we're working here. There we go. Okay. So, you stop for a moment to be sure that you are all right, and then continue down the corridor. There are no side passages, no other way to go. Ahead, the corridor leads into a wider area, which we will call a chamber. You carefully approach the chamber, shining your lantern around to see if anything is there. A hiss comes from the corner of the room and to your left, and there you see a huge rattlesnake, almost 10 feet long. Near it, on the floor, are hundreds of gold and silver coins. Talking to a snake will do no good at all. Again, you can't just sneak past it. Again, you must fight. For this battle, you will keep track of hit points. The snake has 3 hit points. On your sheet of paper, near the bottom, write snake 3, leaving some room to keep track of the snake's damage. This time, you will need to roll an 11 or higher to hit the snake. It's slower and easier to hit than the goblin was, but the snake has better chance of hitting you than the goblin did because it's bigger and tougher. If you hit the snake, cross off the 3 and write the 2 next to it. You have damaged the snake. If you miss, don't do anything. The snake then bites at you and hits. At the top of the sheet, cross off the 8 after the words hit points and write a 7 next to it. So, let's fight the snake. Well, it says here, while playing a D&D game by yourself, you should use this method to keep track of your hit points and the hit points of the monster you meet. Obviously, yeah. I mean, this is kind of what solo plays kind of are about. But we're really still very abstracting here. So, let's see. I need an 11 or better to hit the snake. I'm going to call that cocked. In fact, let's roll in the box. All right. Okay, 2's a miss. So the snake will attack me and bite me and inflict 1 point of damage, which I'll just tick off right up in here on top of my sheet. Moving to the next page. Poisoned? This is a poisonous snake, which can be very dangerous. In the game, there is a way of finding our, it says our, but it's out. Whether the poison hurt you or not, roll the 20-sided die again. If you roll 12 or higher, that means you dodged before the snake could inject its poison, but you still take damage from the bite. If you roll an 11 or less, your fighter takes 2 more points of damage from the poison. So, let's get out the old box again. And, all right, we're looking for 12 or higher. And I bounced right out of the box. Well done, Rob. Oh, I'm poisoned. So that's another 2 points of damage. Not my day. It is possible to die in the solo scenario. I've not played this poorly in a while. But, you know, it's how the dice go. You made this roll to see if you saved yourself in trouble. This roll is called a savings throw. Well, I pluralize that, and I think a lot of people do. It's a saving throw. And will be used later in many other situations in the game. Your fighter swings again. Remember, if you roll an 11 or higher, you hit, and you subtract 1 hit point from the snake. If you miss, do nothing. Right. So, again, missing. uh, hmm. Snake bites your fighter again. You lose one more hit point and must make another saving throw. Remember, if you roll 12 or higher, you don't lose extra points. If you roll an 11 or less, you add another 2 hit points from poison damage. All right. So I'm down to 2 hit points at this point. You can now swing again. If the snake still lives, it bites and misses. Oh, thank God. Okay, so we just need to roll 3 hits. Hey, there's 1 hit. That's the second hit because we only need to hit roll 11 to hit the snake. And that is a miss because that's a 10. 2, 2, 7, 20. 20 house rules are predominant on rolling 20s and 1s on d20s, but those rules don't actually exist in this version of the game. If you're playing the game as written, that doesn't make any difference. So, right. If the snake still lives, bites and misses. In this battle, the snake won't hit anymore. In a regular game, it might kill your fighter before you hit it at all. Very true. Snake will keep attacking, but it will keep missing. Your fighter may have to swing many times, but sooner or later you will kill the snake. Make all the practice rolls you need. When a snake's hit points become 0, the snake is dead. If your hit points ever reach 0, you're dead. But in this scenario, we can't get to 0, fortunately. You are hurt, but there is nothing you can do about it right now. The damage your fighter is taking can be healed by a few days' rest. The dead snake is not dangerous, so you get to work. You pick up the many coins and put them in your cloth sacks you brought with you. As you are doing this, you notice that besides the gold, there are 3 types of silvery coins. Most are silver, but others are more valuable metals called electrum and platinum. This is a rich treasure. Snakes usually have none. The treasure probably belonged to someone else who tried to kill the snake but failed. Sometimes treasure could be hidden. Looking carefully around the room, you find a small gem, a pearl, in one corner. It may be worth 100 gold pieces itself. After resting a bit to catch your breath and shine the lantern around, you see another corridor leading further into the darkness. Looking back the way you came, you see the light of day shining on the cave entrance, and in the distance it looks tempting, but you remind yourself that you are a courageous fighter and shouldn't run away just because of a little fighting. Remember, though, that you are hurt. If you continue on, beware. If you see another snake or something else that looks as dangerous, you should probably go back. Don't get killed. Live to fight another day. The treasure will wait. You carefully start down the corridor into the unknown, and your lantern held high and sword ready. The corridor leads to another small cave. As you approach, you hear a voice and see a light. You pull the shutters closed on your lantern so you can hide better and carefully peek around the corner. To your right, sitting by the cave wall, is a beautiful woman, wearing armor like yours. She has no sword, but has a rod with a metal ball on one end. This is a weapon called a mace. A lit lantern is on the floor next to her. She seems to be meditating or praying. Here we have another lovely piece of Elmore work, just illustrating the piece. You decide she may not wish to be disturbed, but as you try to quietly tiptoe past, she looks up and says, "Greetings, friend. Looking for the goblin? You might... Oh, you are hurt. May I help?" She watches you carefully in case you are dangerous, but seems to want to help. You apologize for disturbing her, but you wonder what she knows about the goblin and, most of all, how she could help you. But wait, she might be an enemy. Keeping your sword ready, you move closer. She stands and says, "My name is Alina. I'm a cleric and an adventurer like yourself. I live in the town nearby and came here seeking monsters and treasure. Do you know about clerics? Stop and imagine what your character would say. Back in town, she might have been one of your neighbors. You are not sure, but you don't know about clerics. After listening to you, she says, "Well, the goblin went that way," and points towards a corridor leading out of the room. "He came through here so fast I almost didn't see him. You hit him. Good for you. Goblins are nasty." Since you don't know about clerics, let me explain. Clerics are trained in fighting like you, but we can also cast spells. I meditate, and the knowledge of spells enters my mind. One of the spells I can cast right now is a curing spell, and you look like you need it. Spell casting. You've heard of it, but know nothing about it. You're still cautious, but you watch as the cleric says a few words and touches you lightly on the arm. Magically, your wounds are healed. On your sheet, cross out your hit points and write down that 8, the full amount you started with. So yeah, I'm just going to scratch off that tally. Feel better? She asks. Would you care to sit and rest a bit? I'd like to tell you a few things that you will need to know later. You sit down, happy to rest, but keeping your sword handy in case of trouble. She sits down next to her lantern. If you didn't know about clerics, you probably don't know about magic users. They are adventurers like you and me, but study only spells and rarely fight. They have different spells than we clerics do, and instead of meditating, they learn their spells from books. There are very few magic users living in town, but not many. Did I say very? There are few. If you are attacked by a bad magic user, you might be able to avoid the magic, but it's harder than avoiding poison. Spells can be helpful, but they can be very dangerous too. By the way, that looked like a snake bite that I cured. That can be very bad because most poison is deadly. You were lucky that it didn't cause more damage. You are indeed. Some other creatures also have special attacks, like poison. Some can paralyze, and some can even turn you to stone just by looking at you, unless you look away in time. And dragons are the worst. They can breathe fire, acid, or other deadly things. You can never avoid all the damage from their breaths, but you can lessen it if you cover up in time. Your character has different saving throws for each of the special attack forms. These will be explained later. Charisma, your personality. Your fighter gets along pretty well with the cleric. She was friendly right away. This is the effect of another ability score, your charisma. Since your fighter is a likable person, your charisma score is above average, 14. Remember, 18 is the best possible. If you had a low score, the cleric would have been very cautious and might not have offered to cure you at all. Wisdom, your common sense. A cleric is very wise. This is another ability score, different from intelligence. For example, imagine that you feel wet drops on your arm. Your intelligence would tell you that it's raining. Your wisdom would tell you to go indoors and avoid catching a cold. Your fighter is not very wise. Your wisdom score is 8, but the cleric has a wisdom of 17, but is fairly weak, with a strength of 9. Each type of adventurer has a different speciality. Magic users, for example, have high intelligence, but often low strength. Put these two ability scores on your sheet. 8 wisdom and 14 charisma. So that's 8 Wiz, W-I-S, and 14 charisma, C-H-A. Sharing adventures. As your fighter talks with the cleric, you get to know each other a little better. She offers to come along to help in the adventure. Although this means that the treasure should be split between you, it also means that together you can defeat more dangerous monsters and find more treasure. And 2 adventurers have a better chance of success than either does alone. You decide that it would be a good idea, and together you set off down the next corridor. And at this point, I'm going to stop this video because we're already over a half hour. and I'll do more in the next part. Um, I hope you liked this. I hope you, I don't know. I'm, I am doing this mostly for myself as an expression, a creative outlet for the time being. But I hope that someone out there enjoys this. And I hope you will join me for next time when we carry on with this initial part of the solo adventure. I hope you have a great day, everybody. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.